Keanu Reeves never planned for that evening to change everything. It was a quiet Sunday night in downtown Los Angeles. The streets were empty. The breeze carried the faint smell of rain, and Keanu had decided to take a walk alone, wearing a simple hoodie and jeans, no bodyguard, no paparazzi. He loved these moments where he could blend in, where people barely noticed him, just another man under the streetlights. But then, as he passed an old grocery store that had long been shut down, he heard a sound that made him stop in his tracks. It was so soft he thought he imagined it. A faint whimper, a muffled cry. He turned his head, eyes narrowing to the shadows behind the dumpster. At first, he saw nothing, but then a tiny hand moved, pale against the darkness. His heart skipped. A beat. Keanu stepped closer, careful not to frighten whoever was there. He knelt down, peeking behind the dumpster, his breath caught in his throat. There, curled up together under a torn blanket, were 3 small children. They looked so thin their bones showed through their skin. Their clothes were dirty, torn, soaked from the damp ground. One of them, a little girl with tangled hair, looked up at him with eyes too big for her face. She didn't speak. None of them did. They just stared at him, too tired even to be afraid. Keanu's single quotes S voice broke as he whispered, "Hey, it's okay. Are you hungry?" The children didn't answer. The smallest boy shivered, hugging his knees to his chest. The older boy tried to cover him with what was left of the blanket, but it was useless. They were all freezing. Keanu's mind raced. How long had they been here? Where were their parents? He reached into his pocket, found the protein bar he always kept with him. He opened it and offered it to the little girl. She looked at him, then at the bar, then back at him. Unsure if she could trust him, Keanu tore off a piece and ate it himself. He chewed, smiled, and said, "See, it's safe. Eat." The girl slowly reached out, her tiny fingers trembling. She took the bar and shared it with her brothers. They ate like they hadn't seen food in days. It made Keanu's chest ache. He pulled out his phone, but he hesitated. Should he call the cops? Would they end up in some overcrowded shelter? He didn't want them to be just another case number. He wanted to help them properly. He took off his hoodie and wrapped it around the smallest boy. Then he looked each child in the eyes and said, "Come on, you're coming with me." At first, they didn't move. Fear and hope fought inside their eyes. The girl asked, so quietly he almost didn't hear, "Are you gonna hurt us?" The question punched him in the gut. "Never," he said. "I promise, I'm gonna help you." They got up slowly, legs weak, bodies so light they almost floated. Keanu carried the youngest boy, held the girl's hand, and let the older boy hold his sleeve. They walked down the street together, a strange picture under the orange glow of the streetlights. Cars passed by, no one looked twice. No one knew that 3 starving children were being rescued by a man who'd once been just another face on the screen. Keanu drove them to his small house on the outskirts of the city. He didn't care if anyone found out. Inside, he gave them warm blankets, peanut butter sandwiches, and hot chocolate. The children ate and drank in silence, their eyes never leaving him. Still unsure, he found old clothes in his closet that were too big for them, but they didn't care. They curled up on his couch, exhausted. The girl, who seemed to be the eldest, finally whispered her name. "I'm Lily, this is Tommy, and this is Ben." Her voice cracked on the names. Keanu sat beside them all night. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. He watched them breathe, his mind turning over the questions. Who would leave them like this? Were they running from someone? Did they have parents who might be searching? Or were they all alone? As dawn broke, Lily opened her eyes and found him still there. She asked one thing that made him choke back tears. "Are you gonna send us back?" Keanu shook his head. "No, Lily, you're safe here." But deep inside, something told him this story was far from over. He felt it in his bones. Something was waiting for him just beyond the sunrise, something that would test his promise to these children. And when the truth came out, it would break his heart in ways he never imagined. Keanu barely rested that night. The children slept curled together on his couch, wrapped in blankets that still smelled faintly of his old cologne. Every few minutes, he checked on them, touching their foreheads to make sure they weren't burning up. They looked so peaceful, so fragile, like tiny birds that had fallen from their nest. But Keanu's mind wouldn't stop racing. Who would abandon 3 innocent kids? Why were they behind a dumpster, starving and alone? He needed answers, and he needed them now. When the sun rose, Keanu made pancakes with blueberries, the only thing he could find in his kitchen. He smiled as he watched them eat, their little hands grabbing the food like they were afraid it might vanish. He tried to make conversation, but their answers were soft, broken, and sometimes silent. Lily, the oldest, spoke for the boys when they couldn't find the words. "We used to live in a house," she said between bites, "but Mom got sick." Keanu leaned closer. "Where's your mom now, Lily?" Her eyes dropped to her plate. She didn't speak. Tommy, the middle boy, hugged Lily's side. Ben, the youngest, just stared at the window like he was somewhere far away. The air in the kitchen turned heavy. Keanu didn't push them. He knew the truth would come when they were ready. After breakfast, Keanu called an old friend, someone he trusted more than anyone, Maria, a social worker he'd met years ago while volunteering at a shelter. Maria answered on the first ring. "Keanu, it's early. What's wrong?" He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I found 3 kids last night, behind a dumpster. They're safe here now, but, Maria, they're so thin, so scared. Can you come by?" Maria didn't even hesitate. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." When Maria arrived, the kids shrank behind Keanu. Lily clung to his arm, eyes wide with fear. Maria crouched to their level, her smile warm and gentle. "Hi, sweethearts. I'm Maria. I'm here to help. You don't have to be scared." But the children didn't trust her. They only looked at Keanu, searching his face for answers. He knelt down and touched Lily's cheek. "It's okay. Maria is my friend. She helps kids like you all the time." Slowly, Lily let go of his arm. Maria talked to them softly, asking about their mom, their house, how long they'd been on the street. Bit by bit, pieces of the truth slipped out. Their mother, Emily, had gotten sick months ago. She lost her job. They were evicted. They moved from one shelter to another, but then she got worse. One day, she didn't wake up. A man from the shelter told them he'd take them somewhere safe, but he never did. He dropped them behind the store, told them to stay hidden, and never came back. Maria's eyes shone with tears as she listened. Keanu's jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "We have to find him," he said, voice low. "We have to find out what happened to their mother, too." Maria nodded. "I'll start making calls. But Keanu, we have to talk about what comes next. They can't stay here with you forever. If we don't find family, they'll have to go into foster care." Keanu felt something heavy press into his chest. He looked over at the children, now curled up on his couch again, half asleep from exhaustion. Lily opened her eyes just enough to find his. There was fear in her gaze, a silent question. Would he abandon them too? "No," Keanu said firmly. "They stay here, at least until we know everything. They're not going anywhere." Maria didn't argue. She knew him too well, but she also knew this would get complicated fast. There were rules, laws, people who wouldn't care that this was Keanu Reeves opening his home to 3 lost souls. They would see 3 kids with no papers, no guardian, no hope. They'd see a case number, not human hearts. As Maria left to start her search, Keanu sat with the kids, telling them stories about his dog, about the time he learned how to ride horses for a movie, about the nights he couldn't sleep and drove around the city just to feel alive. Lily listened with wide eyes. Tommy giggled when Keanu made silly voices. Ben finally spoke. Just one word, "Thank you." The day passed slow and gentle, but under the softness. A storm was building. Keanu knew it. He felt it deep inside. Somewhere out there, someone knew the truth about these triplets, someone who could destroy the tiny hope blooming in his living room. As he tucked the kids into bed that night, Lily grabbed his hand. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Keanu squeezed her fingers, his voice steady though his heart trembled. "Always, Lily. I'm not going anywhere." But when dawn came, he would find out that promises are sometimes tested in ways no one can imagine, and the truth waiting for him would break him more than he ever thought possible. Keanu barely closed his eyes that night. Every time he drifted off, He'd hear a soft cough or a whimper from the next room and sit straight up, ready to comfort the triplets. It wasn't just worry for their safety that kept him awake. It was the promise he had made to them. He couldn't stand the idea that they might be taken away, lost in a system that didn't care who they really were. The morning started with the soft knock at his door. Maria stood outside, holding a folder so thick that Keanu's stomach sank the moment he saw it. She stepped inside, glancing over at the kids who were still asleep on the couch, their little chests rising and falling in perfect unison. Maria's eyes were tired, but her voice was calm. "I found out some things, Keanu. You need to sit down." Keanu sat, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles went white. Maria placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were faded photos, medical records, and a police report that made Keanu's heart pound. Their mother, Emily, she didn't just die in her sleep. She died in a rundown motel outside the city, alone. No one came for her body for 3 days. She left a note. Maria handed him a copy of the note. The paper shook in his hands as he read the messy handwriting. "Please don't take my babies. Please don't separate them. Keep them together. Please." The last word was smudged with what looked like a tear. Keanu pressed his lips together, fighting back the burn in his eyes. He looked up at Maria. Why didn't anyone help her? Maria sighed. She tried. Keanu. She went to shelters. She asked for help. But she didn't have family, no stable job, no ID when she lost her purse. One man promised her a place to stay, Paul Gibbons. He runs an unregistered halfway house. I looked him up. He's known for dumping kids on the street when they become too much trouble. Rage sparked inside Keanu's chest. And the police, Paul's got a record, but no one ever makes charges stick. He moves around, uses fake names. I talked to some people, he's still in the city. He'll come looking for them if he finds out you have them. Keanu felt a cold dread settle in his bones. He looked over at the couch, where Lily stirred, eyes half open. How could someone look at these kids and think they were too much trouble? He turned back to Maria. So what happens now? Do we just wait for him to show up? Maria shook her head. I'm trying to get an emergency custody order so they can stay with you legally. But it takes time. Meanwhile, Paul could come and claim them if he convinces the wrong people he's their guardian. Keanu's jaw tightened. He's not taking them. Maria gave him a look, a mix of respect and fear. Keanu, you're famous. People will twist this into something ugly if you do something reckless. Keanu didn't answer. He just stood and walked over to Lily, brushing her hair back. She smiled at him. A smile so small, yet so trusting it made his chest hurt. Morning, she whispered. Morning, Lily. He whispered back. The day passed like a blur. Maria made calls. Keanu cooked breakfast, then lunch. The triplets slowly started to trust him more. Ben clung to his leg every time he left the room. Tommy asked him if he could have a toy car. Lily helped him fold blankets, trying so hard to act like a grown-up. Every moment made his promise heavier on his shoulders. Late that afternoon, Keanu stepped outside to get some air. He needed to clear his head. But when he turned the corner near his driveway, he froze. A man stood there, a big man with greasy hair, wearing a faded leather jacket and a fake smile. Paul Gibbons. He held a cigarette between his fingers, crushing it out under his boot. KeanuReeves. Huh, Paul's voice was slick, mocking. Heard you've got something that belongs to me. Keanu's fists clenched. Those kids don't belong to you. Paul laughed, low and cruel. Oh, you think you're a hero. You got no idea how things work. You can't just keep them. They're my responsibility now. Keanu stepped closer, his voice like ice. Your responsibility. You dumped them behind a dumpster. They were starving. Paul shrugged. So, kids like that, nobody wants them. Too much work. But I can get paid for them if they're with me. So here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna hand them over nice and easy. No fuss. Or else. Keanu's eyes narrowed. Or else what? Paul leaned in close, his breath foul. Or else people start talking. People say you took them for, I dunno, weird reasons. You want that headline, Mr. Movie Star. For a moment, the street seemed to go silent. Keanu felt the anger rise like fire in his chest. He took a step even closer. So close Paul flinched. You're not getting near them, ever. Paul's eyes went cold. We'll see about that. As Paul walked away, Keanu knew this wasn't over. He went back inside, his heart pounding. He looked at the triplets, now laughing at a cartoon on his old TV, innocent to the danger outside. He knew right then he would do anything to protect them. But deep down, he felt the first crack in his promise, because he was beginning to realize that love alone might not be enough. The fight for these kids had just begun, and the truth waiting for him would break his heart in ways he still couldn't imagine. Keanu barely closed the front door before his hands started to shake. The cold threat in Paul's voice still echoed in his ears like a curse he couldn't shake off. He walked back into the living room, forcing himself to put on a calm face. Lily looked up at him from the floor, where she was helping Ben stack old toy blocks into a crooked tower. She saw something in his eyes she always did. "Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice so soft it made his chest ache. Keanu knelt beside her and forced a smile. "Nothing for you to worry about, Lily. You're safe, I promise." But Lily just kept looking at him, her small hand resting on his arm, like she was the only one in the world who could see right through his fear. Before she could ask more, Maria knocked on the door again, her eyes wide when she saw Keanu's face. He pulled her into the kitchen, lowering his voice. "He showed up, Paul. He wants to take them. He threatened to start rumors about me." Maria dropped her bag on the counter, her fingers already pulling out paperwork. "I figured he might. I filed an emergency motion with the family court, but it won't be heard until tomorrow morning. That means we need to keep the kids here tonight. We need proof he's a danger. The police can't act unless he actually tries something." Keanu ran a hand through his hair, the tired lines on his face deepening. "So we just wait. Hope he doesn't come back." Maria's voice dropped. "Keanu, you can't fight this alone. He has connections. He knows loopholes. We need the kids to tell the judge what he did to them. But that means they have to talk. They have to remember." Keanu looked past her, to the kids giggling on the couch now, the cartoons still playing. Too loud. They looked so small, so breakable. How could he ask them to relive what that monster did? But deep down, he knew Maria was right. If they didn't speak, Paul might find a way to take them legally, and that thought made his blood boil. That night, Keanu made them all spaghetti for dinner. He sat with them, laughing at Tommy's silly jokes, helping Ben wipe sauce off his chin, listening to Lily talk about the puppy she once had before they lost everything. He wanted to keep the night light, but when the dishes were cleared and the TV was off, he knew he had to try. He sat on the rug, Lily on one side, Tommy and Ben curled up in blankets on the other. "Lily," he said gently, "can you tell me more about what happened before I found you? Do you remember anything about Paul?" Her eyes went wide with fear. She hugged her knees, and Tommy's face fell. Ben buried his head under the blanket. "He said we'd get in trouble," Lily whispered. "He said if we talked, they'd take us away forever." Keanu's throat tightened. He wanted to scream, to punch holes through the walls. Instead, he reached out and held Lily's hand. "Listen to me. He lied to you. He didn't keep you safe. You were cold and hungry. You could've." His voice broke for a second, but he forced himself to go on. "No one is taking you away for telling the truth. You're brave. You're so brave." Lily's lips trembled. "Will you be here if I tell? Always," he said, his voice a promise and a prayer at the same time. Bit by bit, the words came. Lily spoke in a tiny whisper, telling how Paul yelled at them when they cried for food, how he locked them in a basement when they asked about their mom, how he pushed Ben so hard he hit his head. Tommy chimed in, describing nights when they shivered alone, listening to Paul and his friends laugh upstairs. Ben didn't say much, but he crawled onto Keanu's lap, burying his face in his chest like he was trying to forget. Maria wrote everything down, every word, every detail, every bruise they remembered. When it was done, Lily looked at Keanu, her eyes red and puffy. "Do we still have to leave you?" Keanu kissed the top of her head. "No, baby. I'm not letting him hurt you ever again." That night, Keanu made up a bed for himself on the floor right next to the couch where the kids slept. He didn't trust locks, He didn't trust walls. He wanted to be between them and any shadow that might come through that door. But even as he lay there listening to the soft breathing of the triplets, a part of him knew Paul wouldn't give up so easily. Monsters never did. And when Keanu finally drifted into a restless sleep, a storm was brewing outside his window, one that would test every promise he'd made to these children. Because sometimes the greatest battle isn't just saving someone, it's proving to the world that their lives matter. The house was so quiet that night, Keanu could hear every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside. He lay on the carpet next to the couch where the triplets slept, his hand resting on the edge of the blanket, as if he could protect them just by touching them. But sleep didn't come easy. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Paul's smug grin and heard his threat. People start talking. When dawn finally broke, Keanu sat up, his back aching from the hard floor. Lily was the first to wake up. She blinked at him, her voice still. "Sleepy, did you stay here all night?" Keanu smiled, brushing her hair back. "Of course, I promised. Remember?" The smell of toast and eggs filled the little kitchen as Maria returned, holding a brown envelope clutched to her chest. She looked exhausted, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Keanu, we have a chance," she said. "The judge agreed to hear the emergency custody petition this morning. If the kids testify and we prove Paul's pattern of neglect, the court can grant you temporary guardianship until we find a better solution." Keanu's shoulders tensed. "And Paul, he knows," Maria said grimly. "He's already called the courthouse claiming you kidnapped them. But if we do this right, he won't stand a chance." Keanu looked at the kids, who sat huddled together at the table, nibbling at toast like baby birds. They looked up at him, and he saw the same question in their eyes he'd seen since day one. "Are we really safe?" He knelt beside Lily. "Today, we're going to talk to someone very important to judge. You just have to tell the truth, okay? I'll be right there. Maria will be there. You won't be alone." Lily's eyes glistened with tears. "What if he takes us away?" Keanu's hand closed around hers. "He won't. I swear to you, Lily, he's not your family. You are my family now." The courthouse was cold, a place that smelled like old paper and echoing footsteps. Keanu held Lily's hand the whole time. Tommy clutched Maria's bag like a shield. Ben pressed his face into Keanu's leg, refusing to look up at the rows of strangers who turned to stare at them. In the small courtroom, Paul sat at a table, his greasy hair slicked back, a smirk twisting his lips. He wore a cheap suit that did nothing to hide the darkness in his eyes. When Lily saw him, her grip on Keanu's hand tightened so hard it hurt. The judge was an older woman with tired eyes, but there was warmth in her voice when she spoke to Lily. "Sweetheart, do you know why you're here?" Lily glanced at Keanu, then at the judge. Her voice wavered. "Because he wants to take us away." She pointed a small finger at Paul. "But he hurt us. He left us outside. He said Mommy went to heaven, but he lied. He said if we were bad, he'd make us disappear too." Paul leaned forward, his grin mean. The kids confused. "Your Honor, you know how they are." But Lily didn't stop. Tears ran down her face, but her voice grew stronger. "He locked us in the dark. He didn't give us food. Tommy cried all night. Ben got sick. He didn't care." Tommy buried his face in Maria's shoulder, sobbing. Ben wouldn't look up, but a single word escaped his lips, a whisper that made the whole room go silent. "Bad man." Keanu felt something crack inside him. He wanted to stand, to pull the kids close and shield them from every stare, every whisper. But he knew he had to let the truth speak for itself. Maria laid out the records, photos of bruises, statements from the shelters, Emily's handwritten note begging for her babies to stay together. Each page fell like a stone on Paul's false stories. His smug grin faltered. The judge looked at him, her eyes narrowing. "Mr. Gibbons," she said, her voice sharp, "you claim you care for these children, yet your record shows multiple complaints of neglect and abuse. You abandoned them behind a dumpster. Do you deny this?" Paul tried to laugh it off. "It's my word against theirs, Judge. They're just kids, and kids have a voice in this court," the judge snapped. She turned to Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, you've taken these children in without hesitation. Do you understand what you're asking for?" Keanu stood, his heart pounding. I do, Your Honor. I want them safe. They're not just kids to me, they're family. I know I'm not their father, but I'll fight for them like one. The room went quiet as the judge read through the last papers. Then she looked at Lily, Tommy, and Ben. Her voice softened. You are so brave. You deserve love and safety. I'm granting temporary guardianship to Mr. Reeves while we complete a full investigation. These children will not return to Mr. Gibbons' care. Paul slammed his fist on the table. This isn't over, Reeves, he shouted as security pulled him away. His voice echoed in the hallway, a threat that clung to the walls like a stain. Keanu dropped to his knees as the kids ran into his arms. They were crying, laughing, all at once. Lily's small voice whispered in his ear, You kept your promise. Keanu hugged them tighter than ever. Knowing the battle wasn't truly over, Paul might come back, rumors might spread, and the world might question his every choice. But in that moment, none of it mattered. They were his now, for as long as they needed him. And as they left the courthouse, the bright sun warming their faces, Keanu knew in his bones that the hardest part was still to come, because love is easy to promise, but it's the fight to protect it that costs everything. The courthouse steps felt like the edge of a new life. Keanu held Lily's hand in one of his own and carried Ben on his hip, while Tommy walked so close to Maria that she kept brushing his hair back from his eyes. Outside, the sunlight made everything feel softer, warmer, like the cold shadows Paul had thrown over their lives couldn't follow them here. But Keanu knew the shadows weren't gone. He could feel them at the edge of every headline, every camera that might find them, every whisper about why a famous actor would take in 3 abandoned kids. As they reached his car, Maria squeezed his arm. You did it, Keanu. You gave them a chance. Keanu looked at her, exhaustion and gratitude warring in his eyes. I don't want it to be just a chance. I want them to have a life. Maria nodded, her eyes soft. They have you. That's a start. The ride home was quiet. Tommy fell asleep leaning against Maria's shoulder. Ben curled up on Keanu's chest like a tiny kitten, and Lily stared out the window, her small hand clutching Keanu's sleeve the whole way. They were safe for now, but the question in Lily's eyes haunted him. How long will it last? When they got home, Keanu made them grilled cheese sandwiches, cutting the crusts off just the way Lily said her mom used to do. They ate sitting on the floor in a circle, the TV playing an old cartoon in the background. It felt almost normal for a few precious minutes. It was just laughter and soft crumbs and Ben giggling when cheese stuck to his fingers. But that night, when the kids were finally tucked into bed, 3 small shapes breathing evenly under warm blankets, Keanu sat at the kitchen table with Maria, the weight of everything pressed into his shoulders. He's not going to stop, is he? Keanu asked. Maria sighed. Paul's losing his hold on them, and he knows it. He might disappear, or he might find another way to cause trouble. You need to be ready for that. Double quotes Keanu single quotes. His eyes darkened. I will be. Maria placed her hand over his. You also need to be ready for the world, Keanu. The press will find out. They'll say things. Some people won't understand why you're doing this. Keanu looked toward the small bedroom where Lily, Tommy, and Ben lay sleeping. I don't care what they say. Those kids have been invisible long enough. I won't let them be invisible anymore. The next morning, Lily wandered into the kitchen in her mismatched pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Are we staying here forever? She asked, her voice so small it cracked Keanu's heart wide open. He bent down, pulling her into his arms. You can stay as long as you want. This is your home now. She looked up at him, her eyes full of that same mix of hope and doubt that had been there since the night he found them. Even if they say bad things about us? Keanu's voice was gentle but strong. Even then, people will always talk, Lily. But they don't know us. They don't know how strong you are, how brave Tommy is, how sweet Ben is. You're my family now. No one gets to break that. In the weeks that followed, the world did find out. The tabloids spun it every way they could. Keanu Reeves adopts homeless triplets, some headlines full of praise, others full of nasty rumors. Paparazzi camped outside his gates, hoping to snap a picture that would sell. But inside his house, none of that mattered. Inside, Mornings were pancakes and sleepy giggles. Lily teaching Tommy to tie his shoes, Ben sneaking into Keanu's bed. In the middle of the night, when he had bad dreams, they went to the park when the crowds were gone. They learned to ride bikes on the old driveway. They told stories about their mom. And every time they did, it hurt a little less. One evening, months later, Keanu found Lily sitting on the porch steps, staring at the stars. He sat beside her, the night cool and soft. She leaned against him and whispered, "Mom would have liked you." Keanu closed his eyes, his voice thick. "I wish I could have met her." Lily looked up, her eyes clear. "Promise you'll never leave us." Keanu brushed a tear from her cheek. "Never, Lily, never." And when the kids were asleep that night, 3 small miracles breathing safely under his roof, Keanu sat alone in the quiet. He thought about how easy it would have been to walk past that dumpster, how easy it would have been to think someone else would help. But he didn't look away. And in not looking away, he had found something that broke his heart open and filled it at the same time. Proof that sometimes family isn't just who you're born with, but who you fight for when the world turns its back. And for Lily, Tommy, and Ben, this was only the beginning.